الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لك الحمد والشكر على نعمك الظاهرة والباطنة التي لا يحصيها غيرك ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our salat, sawm, fasting, du'as, munajat, invocations during this blessed month, inshallah. And Nabi Abdullah alayhi salatu wassalam قال إن النبي بعث سرية فلما رجعوا قال مرحبا بقوم قضوا الجهاد الأصغر وبقي عليهم الجهاد الأكبر فقيل يا رسول الله ما الجهاد الأكبر قال جهاد النفس. This is a hadith from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah salamu alayhi, who narrates from the Holy Prophet that the Holy Prophet sent a small battalion or a small group of his own soldiers to go for a battle. And when they came back to Medina, he said, welcome or blessed are those who have performed the minor jihad and remained for them the major jihad. They said, Ya Rasulullah, what is the major jihad? He replied, the jihad and the struggle against one's ego. As we have done before, we need to, I normally spend a few minutes recapping some of the major themes we covered the night before. And the night before, we were talking about concept of rage and ghadab, how ghadab and rage, uncontrolled rage, is detrimental and affects not only our relationship, social relationship, but also our spiritual relationship. I mentioned few hadith about the concept of ghadab and rage and how one should work hard to control, including being silent, asking Allah for support, etc., etc. Some of these, and there are a number of other things that one could do, even in what we call contemporary psychology. There are psychologists talk about how uncontrolled rage could be detrimental, and they have prescribed a number of steps. Tonight, the theme of tonight is how the refinement of the soul, or the concept of tazkiyah. But before I start, we need to digress a little bit and go back to the story of Genesis, the creation of human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that human beings, they are unique in a sense that Allah created some kind of a mixture between the physical reality and the spiritual reality. And the spiritual reality, clay and soul, which is the clay and nafas that Allah blows into this clay to give it life. This unique blending of human being makes the human so special, and so that the essence of all human being is not the physical reality. The physical reality, at the time of departure, we leave behind, and it will disintegrate and soon diminish. What we are going to go forward with is the concept of that soul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blew into us into the beginning of the creation. And there are a number of verses in the Holy Quran that focuses on the concept of purification of that soul. That the success and failure of us, or our success and failure, depends how much time we invest in the purification and cleansing of the soul. In Surah Al-Shams, we have verses number 7, 8, and 9. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. It's a unique surah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes eight or nine or more than that oaths one by one. Shams, I take the oath by the sun, the early morning, etc., until it gets to the nafs, by the soul and the one who proportioned it and inspired it, its weakness and strength, and taught it what are right and what are wrong. The one who purifies it succeeds, and the one who corrupts it will fail. قد فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. So technically, according to the power right and what is wrong, but if we possess the purified soul, the soul which is corrupted will not be able to discern what is right and what is wrong. And we see again in various other verses in the Holy Quran, إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. This notion of the guidance that humans need, both from inside and from outside. From inside, it's the ability to discern itself, because the power to discern good and bad is inherently and intrinsically exist in human being. And also it's reinforced by the roles that prophet and revelations play in the outside. So combination of these two, purification of the soul reinforced by revelation outside, should be enough to guide us to the right path. When we go to the Holy Quran, there are three different types of nafs that Quran mentions. The lowest one is nafs al-ammara, which is a nafs which we call it evil inciting and commanding. It really, if it takes control, then humans will have very little chance of being able to remove themselves. So the sooner we are able to break the shackle of nafs al-ammara and free ourselves, the better it is. This is the nafs in which shaitan uses, or the avenue or the conduit where shaitan uses to be able to do waswasa and control us. Then we have nafs al-lawwama, or self-reproaching nafs. Still is not high enough to protect us or secure us a degree of infallibility, but at least it is much better than nafs al-ammara, where we, even if we commit sins infrequently, because we are a little bit more mindful, the nafs comes back and blame us. Nafs al-lawwama, lawm, to blame, that why did you do this? Why did you sin? Why didn't you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why did you violate the command of Allah? So the nafs al-lawwama, nafs al-lawwama is a nafs that we now can use to move towards tawbah and repentance. And then ultimately the nafs al-mutma'inna, which is the highest level reserved for the elites, that for the time being we will leave it out. But these are definitely the three types of nafs. Orafa, for example, the concept refers to the process of purification of the soul, that the nafs, gradually removing negative traits out and replacing them one by one by positive traits. This purification, this struggle to purify oneself, is the jihad al-akbar that the hadith at the beginning of my lecture referred to, and it is really struggle, hard work in here. So this is something that we need to be mindful of. So Jihad al-Akbar literally means that hard work that we invest in the process of being able to move from at least lower level of nafs al-lawwama to go to higher level of nafs al-lawwama by increasing the characteristics of God consciousness and taqwa that repeatedly we have talked about during the month of Ramadan. So that purification is it is not possible. Uh, we have to remind ourselves that this, because it requires huge work, quick fix when it comes to jihad, to purification of the soul and tazkiyatun nafs is not possible. This requires really a process of going stage by stage by stage. It's not something that we can copy. Uh, Say one of the Urafa said this dua is highly recommended. It may work for him after spending 30 years of purification of his soul, but I cannot just pick it up and start reciting that dua and hope that by tomorrow morning I have reached his level of purification. Unfortunately, there is some kind of misconceptions, particularly these days, that you go to the internet and you see life of Ayatollah Qadi, Ayatollah Bahjat, Ayatollah Tabatabai, and a number of other mystics. And they all have some kind of dhikr, invocations, and du'as that they used to recite themselves. And people think by going through this and reciting them, they are going to reach that higher level that they are in. This is not. So long as the soul is not purified and the sins exist, and this change in nature has not taken place, that we switch from somehow being the servant of nafs al-ammara, that easily misguided by shaitan, and we commit sins. So long as that exists, the issue of purification has not reached, and naturally the process of sayr and suluk has not started. Those people that we hear about them, they spend years of purifying their. We proceed. Number one, I have said in previous lectures, we cannot do anything without first asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for support. That is the number one. So we need to ask first, to start by asking Allah to support us in this endeavor and struggle. It's an uphill battle that we really need to go through before we purify ourselves. So number one, we have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two is our activities. It cannot be achieved purely by impulse and prayer. We really need to begin the process of purification by changing our behavior. If we constantly continue doing the same thing, it's not going to happen. This is why during the month of Ramadan, we are encouraged to correct our actions. And the hadith, if you look at the khutbah Sha'baniyah, the Holy Prophet says, your success and failure is contingent upon the actions that you do and how strongly, how much effort you put into this month, then that would give you the result accordingly. So there is a direct relationship between our effort and hard work with the result that we get. The first thing that starts, I mentioned this a few nights ago regarding the concept of Tawbah, self-reflection. That at the end of each night, at the end of each day, we sit down and we become reflective of what we have done during the day, or even during the month of Ramadan. By the end of the night, did we really spend the time doing proper invocation? Did we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help? Did we at least start the process of repentance? Did we reflect on the past and see that the past have been nothing but failure, and we really need to change ourselves? So self-reflection to understand our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How close are we to Allah? If we are constantly sinful and yo-yoing out of sinfulness and out in sinfulness, out of sinfulness, and keep repeating, etc., it's not going to be conducive to the process of sayr and suluk that requires a clear determination that we are not going to go back to that path of sinfulness. Number two is the concept of Sharia. No sayr and suluk and purification can take place without us remaining and being mindful of the laws of Sharia, the halal and haram. Care about halal and haram. All kinds of food that we eat is from haram, or at least most of it, or there are some haram food in it. So we don't expect much as far as purification and tazkiyatun nafs. And also not wajibat, the obligations that we have. We have obligation towards fasting, we have obligation towards salat, we have obligation towards zakat and khums, we have obligation towards hajj. If these issues we have not done, or they are still on our shoulders, we really need to deal with them. These fall within the huququllah and huququl nas that Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi in Nahj al-Balagha categorizes under the 6 stages of Tawbah. The first one, he says, the reflection on the past and being to be regretful of the past. The second stage is the resolute determination that you are not going to go back. These are part of the process of Tawbat Nasuh that we talked about. Then comes Huququllah and Huququl Nas. If I owe someone some money, or I have to go and give it to them. Even on the spiritual level, if I have backbited someone, slandered someone, I have to go and ask them to forgive. If I haven't done Hajj, although I'm obligated to do it, there is no obstacle, I need to go and do it. Zakat and Khums is the same thing. Salat and Som that I have not done and performed, these have to be done. Tawbat Nasuh is when at least these responsibilities have been discharged. So being self-conscious, constantly probing ourselves of what we do. Is it correct? Are we close? Are we far away? Are we deviating? Are we drifting? That consciousness is necessary. So careful examination of ourselves. If I may use the auditing concept, so we constantly audit our behavior and our deed. Unlike Christian approach that says that salvation is more of an individualistic base, in Islam, salvation is collective based, because we as human beings, we may be born individual, but we live in a society, in a collective, that the collective, whether we like it or we don't, has a direct influence, positive or negative. So if we need to move forward in an environment which is not conducive, they are corrupting, it is our obligation to fix that issue, as well as during the time, or parallel to the time that we spend on ourselves. One does not live in isolation. The notion of nature relationship, or the dynamic, the effect of outside, Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, which is obligated, is exactly mistakes or that exist within the society. Because if we don't, as the verse in the Holy Quran, the wrath of Allah comes, it would not recognize who was directly implicated into it and who was a by side, or on the side stand, somebody that was standing on the side. We all will be engulfed. Because of that direct effect, we are obligated to work hard for the betterment of the society. And this way, the process of sayr and suluk and tazkiyatun nafs, all as a collective, as a social kind of project, we all work together. Otherwise, one individual trying to correct himself or herself in a society which is corrupting is not going to happen. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us in this uphill struggle before it becomes too late and the month of Ramadan, which is the month of opportunity, is lost. And ultimately, by the help of Allah and support of Allah, we may walk towards becoming a true servant of Allah, inshallah. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.